Yes, as I said, I'm Jessika Richter from Lund Universitet, here to talk about a question that I've been working on with colleagues, both at Lund and elsewhere, for a few years now, about how repair can be more supported, encouraged, and mainstreamed. So, already starting with our results show that there are still many fundamental barriers to repair. And why is this a problem? It's a problem also if we think of what role repair serves in society, and also as we move towards a goal of a circular economy, both with having longer product lifetimes in order to avoid increased material extraction and life cycle impacts and the need for more products. Repair can also be one of the slowing loops and one of the inner loops as a strategy towards achieving a more circular economy, longer product lifetimes, and reduced environmental impacts from resources. So this is part of why it is important, and we heard also about the SDGs and the Sustainable Development Goals. Circular economy is often put as part of SDG number 12. Responsible consumption and production, and repair within that. So in order to upscale repair, we need to understand also the barriers and also a systematic look at repair. And this is something we're working on for a few years. Some of it's new and a lot of it we might know intuitively. But what did we do? We started out mapping the key barriers to repair in literature and practice, also looking at barriers to which stakeholders, barriers to consumers, barriers to businesses, barriers to policymakers. So also this more systematic framework we are using. We also did a legal analysis of barriers because we found a lot of the fundamental barriers were within law itself. So we were looking at law in the EU and also comparing that to the law in the US for one study. And as I mentioned, we were also considering stakeholder perspectives. So we also did a stakeholder analysis as part of this. And what did we find? Well, I already gave you some of the results. There are barriers, fundamental barriers to, in the first place, accessing repair. So even when consumers want to repair, they come up against barriers to repairing. One of the big ones is the design of products themselves. So it could be that products have designs that make it hard to open the product or hard to reach certain components like batteries and taking them out easily and changing them, as the case here with the phone. It could be also that designs might make repair impossible in terms of software blocking. So I have here the tractor as well, which was a case study in the US in particular, one of the poster products of farmers being unable to repair their own tractors because they couldn't access the diagnostic software without the help of John Deere and the original manufacturer. Software also comes into a problem increasingly seen as needing to be addressed as part of repair when we have both hardware, like this companion robot here, Jigo. It can technically, the hardware be repaired, but then the software stopped functioning when the company went out of business and the robot announced to its owners that it was going to shut down. Nice to be a robot. So we can see that the software and the hardware need to be considered together with a lot of products, and particularly with the fundamental design barriers. We were seeing these with products like cars, vehicles, electronics, and white goods. We also saw barriers to repair in the legal landscape, particularly with intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights can be used to stop access or to be a barrier of access to manuals and to spare parts as well. So one of the cases was next door in Norway with one of the repairers importing spare parts that had a trademark of Apple, and it turned out that it was counterfeit as well, and it is the onus of the importer to know whether the parts are genuine or not. So it ended up that Apple won this particular case, but it also then was a deterrence to other smaller repairers there in having that responsibility for knowing all of the spare parts and the trademarks on the inside of products as well as on the outside. We also find barriers to repair in consumer laws. This can be both in the guarantees and how long the guarantees or how short the guarantees might be, and do consumers know about the guarantees and that they might have the right to have repair, and when they have the right to repair, and when they have the right to do the repair themselves. So one thing we came across as well is these stickers of warranty void if removed, and this was also seen as misleading there, because the warranty can't be voided just by the removal of the sticker, but there was a belief among consumers that they shouldn't open their products, that they might not be able to repair their products, or they might only be able to repair their products by bringing them to original manufacturer. So there was also a lot of different levels of awareness among consumers, both about the guarantee in the first place and about then their rights in terms of repair. Another barrier to repair that was a little more surprising was also extended producer responsibility systems and recycling. That often these put targets on recycling that meant that even repairable goods might be sent to recycling instead of to repair and reuse in order to meet those targets. So we are finding this in the case of electronics. Now this also has another part to it, that there's a barrier if it is easier, faster, and if there's not an economic incentive towards the repair and the reuse as well. So it was two parts, but we did see that often we were told by stakeholders it's easier just to put it in the recycling and have it towards our recycling targets. So again, towards that convenience, time, and expense, which is our next level also of repair, that repair is not happening in isolation. It's not the only strategy, and we have barriers to making repair mainstream in terms of having it be competitive compared to the other options. So from a consumer's point of view, we often found that repair could be more expensive than buying new, could be, and from a manufacturer's point of view, it could be more expensive for the reuse and repair, and more time to organize that than simply going to recycling or simply buying new. So from different stakeholders, different strategies that the repair was being weighed against. And of course, we also have heard it today in a few other presentations as well about consumer culture, fast fashion, fast turnover, that can also be a barrier towards what we just saw with things with repair can take more time, more money, at least as they are set up now, compared to the alternatives. So in mainstreaming repair, we saw a lot of different barriers that need to be overcome in making sure that repair is accessible, repair is competitive, before we even get to mainstream for repair. But we did see policies as well. When we started this research, it was 2018. And since that, the landscape for repair policies has moved quite a bit. And what was interesting with this research is that we were often talking with policymakers and different stakeholders that were looking at redesigning the eco-design requirements for products, looking at the Sustainable Products Initiative at the EU level, looking at how to implement repairability labels, first in France, and now it's being talked about at the EU as well. Setting circular procurement criteria around repair, again taking some inspiration from the design requirements, which will increase the access to spare parts, the disassembly requirements for different products, modularity, and we see it also with batteries, having removable batteries. So lots of different requirements coming in, as well as on the more local level, tax reductions for repair, but we also have that on the national level here in Sweden as well. And we've been looking at how those are working in practice, and looking for some ways to evaluate the effectiveness of these tax reductions for repair. Right now we have some mixed findings with that. I also mentioned we looked at stakeholders, and what we also find is different stakeholders have different priorities when it comes to repair and different interests. Right now on the agenda is very much about overcoming these fundamental barriers to repair, the access to repair, and this is often what's referred to as the right to repair. But we see now even that argument moving up towards the right to repair also includes arguments around affordability and access, beyond access, I should say, towards a competitive repair. And it is often there are different stakeholders, including the individual or the DIY and individual or non-OEM repairers versus the OEMs in what and who is supplying the access to repair, and what are the responsibilities of different stakeholders, and whose interests do we put forth here. So mainstreaming repair in the future is going to be about balancing and negotiating these different perspectives and interests, because we have different visions for the future as well. Part of the study and what we're in right now is using visioning of what kind of repair systems we can have, and which kind of repair systems, but the different stakeholders see pros and cons towards moving. One that is more controlled through companies offering the repair, or one that is more open towards anyone being able to repair. And that also comes into visions about what sustainability is to these different stakeholders. But we also see, can we have all these different visions of repair, or do we need to start choosing? So that is where we're at now with this, the next question of what is the future of fixing. Thank you.